following Learn a Latte presentation was given live on Wednesday, February 7th at 7:15 a.m. to parents and guardians of students in grades 9 through 11.
All right. Good morning, parents and guardians. Thank you so much for coming to today's Learn a Latte Zoom event. Learn a Latte is a student services series where we cover different topics about your student's life at Hersey or life after Hersey, hence the spelling of latte, if you hadn't figured that out. And so today we have an exciting topic about campus visits and getting the most out of those campus visits. We had a lot of great questions come in, so hopefully I'll be able to answer them throughout these slides. The slides that I'm gonna use here were originally kind of created for a couple years ago. Myself and a former colleague from Prospect and our Purdue rep did a presentation on this at the public library in Arlington Heights, and so I'm using mostly that, along with adding and adjusting some things to kind of cover this. This topic. I might say you a lot, like you, or when you're making your list or where you're making this. And of course, I'm talking about your students, not you. And we'll talk a little bit about how the parents and can go about the visit part, and the students, what their role is, and some do's and don'ts, and so on and so forth. So the chat should be available to send to me if you have questions along the way. But if you already submitted a question, hopefully it will be covered as we go. So I'd like to start out, especially when talking to parents, to think about the college process as similarly as if you were to buy a home. And many of you may have done this multiple times or even looked for an apartment. You wouldn't just Google, like, what's the best house in Arlington Heights? And then whatever the top one came up on realtor.com, looked at the picture, yep, $4 million. Add to cart, purchase, we're good to go, right? Nobody would do that. You would figure out what do you need, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what kind of size lot, ranch, 2-story, split level, whatever. You would put all those filters in. Do you want to be closer to downtown, further away? What are you looking for? Condo, townhome, whatever. And then you would go visit those places, right? You wouldn't trust the pictures that the real estate agents put online necessarily as showing the full picture. They're not going to show, the chipping paint or this or that. They're going to show the best parts of the house. And that's how colleges are too, right? On their websites and their brochures, they're showing the very best of the best. And so that's why going to visit is important. And it's an important part of the process for the students and for the parents too, to kind of understand where will my child be for the next 4 years or so, especially if they're moving away and going to live there. All right, so we broke this down in 2 parts, some tips from the high school side that myself and the other counselor came up with. And then tips from the college side that were given to us by Jennifer Trupis, who's our Purdue University rep. Some of you may even know her. She lives literally down the street from us, but she works for Purdue. So I'm going to go over all these things here today: who should visit, when, where, why, how, all that, and then some things to expect and some do's and don'ts. All right. So can you be too early or too late? Well, clearly you were all invited as 9th, 10th, and 11th grade parents, because this is a key time to go. Should you bring people before? This is a picture of actually my kids back in the day. I dragged them along on a college tour because I had to go while they were fully engaged, and the lady there is the tour guide, the college student, was great with them. They can be kind of distracting and kind of take away, especially if you're on a group visit. This was just us, thankfully, so we didn't have to annoy anybody else on the tour. But if you're in a larger group, if you have anyone maybe under middle school age, they may be bored or may not fully understand what's going on. So you know your own kid, but you may want to leave them. But if you have middle school kids, definitely bring them along with your high school age kids for sure. Freshmen and sophomores, a lot of great questions came in about, how should we go about this? And again, this is part, and if you were at the presentation or watched it a couple weeks ago about so you want to go to college, it's really about just kind of figuring out what the students want. So they may not have super specific questions. They just may want to get on some different campuses and see, what are the differences? Would I like a school like this? As I'm going to build my list soon, what do I like? What do I don't like? What's important to me? But junior year, for sure, as you're starting to build that list and finalize it before, for juniors this coming August, you might ask more poignant questions and be a little bit more, ingrained in what's going on and what the application process and stuff is going to be like. Senior year, you might be taking tours, still to finalize your choice, or very importantly, if you hadn't visited before you make your final decision, or even if you have to visit again before your final decision, that's a great time. And of course, parents should be part of this process and tour with the students. But again, there's some do's and don'ts we're gonna mention that are important for parents to keep in mind as well. Because remember, they're the ones picking the school. Your students are, and while you may have thoughts and things that you want them to be aware of, you want to make sure that you're not focusing on what you would pick if you were going to go to school versus what is important to them and what they want. So having that conversation and not kind of taking it over for them, or kind of making the decision if they're thinking something different. So how do you go about this? First, there's a lot of options to visit. Hopefully you have kind of a plan of attack. And so it goes back to those 5 Ps of the college search process, which for juniors we talked about in November. If you haven't watched the Finding the Right Fit presentation yet, and even with the freshmen and sophomores at our So You Want to Go to College presentation, we kind of hinted at some of these things. So starting to think of these things, do I want to go to a school that's big or small or public or private or urban or rural, or do they have, am I looking at specific majors? Am I undecided? Am I what's my grade? What are my grades and things like? Am I looking at super selective schools, or do I know that, I'm more of a, less, selective, and that could be even 50%, but versus 5%. So I have this resource on our post-secondary planning guide. And if you have not taken a look at this yet, make sure you check it out, and I can send these resources and this presentation later as well. But I've also put it there in the chat. So this is a worksheet that I set up where we have schools that are within. There's 140 four-year schools within 200 miles of here, so just a couple hour drive. And I broke it down by size and by setting. And so you can go visit a bunch of different types of schools, within a day. Some of them are even down the street from each other. If you go all the way down to the bottom, there's a couple examples. We actually had Illinois Wesleyan here yesterday as one of our college rep panels, and the rep was saying that it's a nice vibe with Illinois State right down the street, where there's a big public school and a lot of stuff happening, but they're smaller, quieter. Which does your student prefer? You can kind of check out different types, all in one spot. And so these are, again, different types of schools that if your student has no idea what they want, go visit a few different types, day trip or so, and see what might be on their list or what they might rule out. And then you can expand to outside, the 200-mile radius if that's, so your choice. So just that's a great resource if you want to check that out. All right. So I guess I can go back to here. Sorry. Oops. All right. So why visit? So I got a few questions about demonstrated interest. So what is demonstrated interest? Demonstrated interest is, does the school pay attention at how interested the student actually is in them? And so you can Google, schools with demonstrated interest. I came up with a couple here. Syracuse, Dickinson, American are 3 just options that show up on multiple lists as where they highly consider demonstrated interest. And so with something like the Common Application, where you can apply to it, or students can apply to over 1,000 schools in one application. What's been happening a lot lately is students are just adding schools to their Common App because they've got most of it filled out already, and then just answer a couple extra questions, and I'll just give it a shot and send it off. Well, if a college has thousands and thousands of applications and they're trying to find the best fits for their school, they want to have an idea of, is this student actually serious about our school, or are they just throwing it on Common App just to see what happens? Because if they're just throwing it on to see what happens and they really have no intention of going there, they're probably not going to really give a lot of weight to that application, and they're going to move on to somebody else who's showed more interest. And you can show interest for sure by visiting the campus and taking the tour. And some people ask, if I just do an informal tour or kind of just go by myself, will that count? Maybe, but they might say, you were here, why didn't you set up an actual tour? So you could try to tell them you were on campus or drove through or did something, but it probably would be the best if you actually set up an official tour. Now, you might be saying some of these schools are far away, like I can't afford or have the time to visit. You can show demonstrated interest in other ways by emailing the rep, having the student talk to the rep when they come here or at our college fair, going on virtual Zooms with them, by opening the emails that come. And this is for students again. They want to see that the student is demonstrating interest, not just the parent is doing everything. So is the student opening the email, going on the website? They can track that. So you can demonstrate interest without having to physically visit the school. But that is one way in some schools, again, we'll track you're actually visiting. Another great reason why students should visit is so that they can determine their fit. So it might look like a match on paper with grades and test scores and they have the major and all that, but is it a good fit? Do they get that gut feeling? Is the environment around the school, something that they feel like they would excel in? Are the other students on campus people they feel like they would get along with? So it might look like a match on paper, but is it a good fit? Another reason to visit is to see what they show you. What do they show you? What don't they show you? Are they like hiding things that you might want to see? Are they showing you classrooms? Are they showing you research spaces? Are they showing you mental health service like what are they showing you? Or are they just kind of picking out a couple key photo op places and then not really showing you like the day-to-day stuff? And then another great reason to visit is so that you have some content if the college has an admission essay that says, why do you want to go to the school? Why do you want to go to University of Chicago? Well, you don't want to just Google like why it's such a great place, but if you have some experience from that visit, something that the tour guy said, a professor said, admission said, a program you learned about, like that can help drive that essay, which again helps the students stand out in thousands of applications when they're trying to figure out who is really interested in this school. So especially the more selective the school, the more they're going to look at those type of essays. And if you have that, the students have that firsthand experience of that campus, they can speak to it a lot better than just looking on the website. All right, so when should you go? There's lots of options, of course. One of the reasons we're talking about this now is spring break is coming up pretty soon, and so many of you might be going on trips or have some time off, and you might want to throw in some college visits while you're driving or flying or around. And so those are good times for high school students because they're off school. Some of the colleges know that and might have special events. If the college themselves are on break, the students are on break, especially over the summer. The downside of that is you don't get the vibe of the campus, right? So I've been on quite a few summer or even winter break visits where like I went to Arizona State, was it last December? Arizona State has like 60,000 students, but they were on winter break. And so it was not the same vibe. And so I got a sense of the layout and some of the things, but I like if I was going to be a prospective student, I would want to go when there's 60,000 students there so I could really see how it is. So when class is in session, especially if you're able to visit a classroom or sit in on a class or something like that to get a vibe of what it's like. When the weather is good or bad, I put on there because, a lot of our students really like to go south east this year. They're applying to Florida and Georgia. Like, I got to get out of this weather, but maybe, they don't realize it could be 95 with 100% humidity or, some other places look great, but the snow or whatever. So if you love it when it's bad weather, you're going to love it, I guess is what I'm trying to say, hopefully. And then how, and this was a popular question as well, too. So you can do informal drive-throughs. I've done this with my family because I will go by a school and I'm like, I want to check it out. And they're like, we don't want to do that. So we just drive through the campus to get a vibe of, the buildings, the layout, the size, where everything is, what's the surrounding area. But you don't really get a true sense of talking to students necessarily or anything. A lot of schools are doing self-guided tours. This kind of came up a lot during COVID when a lot of campuses were closed. They said, here's a map, kind of like this fancy map of Tennessee, and you can just kind of drive around. Some of them have a little bit more details, and that can give you some more information, but again, doesn't give you the full sense. But again, if you're strapped for time, it's something that you can do. Actually, nice if you're going to do something informal, if you know someone there who can walk you around, who's a student, who can tell you what it's like to be in class. Maybe you can sit in a class with them, especially your kids. If your student can stay overnight in the dorm with them, just unofficially, that could be a great way to learn about the school. I ruled out a few schools when I was in high school, just going to my friends who are older than me, going to their schools just for a few hours even, and saying like, this is too big, this is too small, this is too, whatever. Obviously, if you can go on an official tour, that's key. Some schools offer individual ones where it would just be, your family. And then some offer a group tour where there would be a large admissions presentation, and then they would break you up into tour groups, and I'll show you that in a second here. Open house events are nice because more departments will come out for those. So academic programs, clubs and organizations. And so just like, in open houses and things we have in high school, the open house events at colleges allow, and students to talk to more people. There could be other special events too. So once students are admitted, their senior year, many colleges have admitted student events. And so those are really nice to go to because there's a little bit more like what can you expect in next steps and things like that. A few of you asked about sports and athletics. You can take an official NCAA visit if it's an NCAA school, and that would of course be set up through the coach and the college, and you're limited to how many official NCAA visits you can take. But if you're just interested in talking with the coach, definitely that's something, and I'll mention it a little bit. You can reach out while you're going on a regular tour. You can also see if the coach or coaches or somebody can meet you separately. And then there's virtual tour options, and I have some examples at the end. Again, those are nice if it's far away or you just want to get an idea of what the campus looks like. But also, it's not the same, of course, as going in person. All right, so I want to show you really quick, just an example. Let's say you Googled University of Iowa, and hopefully everybody can still see the Iowa page here. And so somewhere on the website, it will say visit. If it's either clear on the front page, or you might be under admissions, but Iowa is right here under visit. And I apologize if you all know this, but I just want to kind of show you some examples. Make sure you're looking for first year options. And you can see at Iowa, there are daily visits, admitted student days. So again, would be for none of you if you're specifically in engineering. And if you're a junior, there's specific junior ones, which is, kind of cool too. So let's just look though at and then virtual options. Let's look at just the regular daily visits. So you would click on register for a daily visit. And they break it down. So some of you asked, how long is it? How much time should we expect? And so in general, most tours last somewhere between visit options are somewhere between like 90 minutes and 2 hours. Usually there's somewhere around an hour to a 75-minute walking tour. So dress appropriately, wear your comfy shoes, all that. And then there'll be like an overview admission session, which is usually about 30 minutes or so. So between the two, you're looking at anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours. What's cool at Iowa is that they offer you a chance to check out a bunch of different things as well. Okay, and they even tell you how to register, planning your trip to the area, and so on and so forth. So you would click on register online, and almost every college I've seen has a calendar that looks like this. So if you were like, yeah, let's go visit on the 26th of February, I can see that they have a morning option, a midday. And so let's say like I'm a morning person, morning, and then I have the option. So I'm already signed up for their overview, the walking tour, the residence hall tour, and Iowa actually gives you free lunch, which most schools don't. But I can also add an honors program before that, and I can also add a College of Business presentation afterwards. And so now you can see my day spans from 8:30 to 1:30. I would continue. And then you would fill out, all your information, and they would give you the confirmation and all that, and then you would be on your way. So hopefully that made sense. Clemson is another one, which I'm actually going to in a few weeks. So follow on Life After Hersey social media, and you can see my pictures and information. Here they don't have visit clear, so you can go to schedule a tour. It'll look very similar. You want to register for a visit. And again, there's the calendar, all the information you need. It's going to be a tour of 10 to 60 students, if that's a group, sorry. You can read all the information. They have a self-guided map if you so choose. But if I want to take a tour, I could click on the different options. They have a 9, 11, and 1. And here it'll be from 9 to 10:30. Who's filling this out? Then you can indicate if it's you or them. And then you would put the info. There's no other options for other departments or programs, so that you might want to reach out to the school directly if that's what you're interested in. So I know that was kind of fast, but hopefully everyone's with me, and that gives you a quick understanding on how what to look for or how to sign up. It's just all online. It's pretty simple. They'll email you the next steps. So speaking of that, once you are registered, make sure you plan your route, parking. Sometimes it can be crazy. When I went to visit North Carolina, I had a rental car. It was impossible to find a place to park. A lot of places make you pay. And so you have to, find the pay thing and have a credit card or an app. It's wild. So give yourself time. And a good tip is to remember to check the time zone, right? So if you go to visit Purdue, that's in Eastern time, even though it's in Indiana. So don't be late or early or, super early, but especially don't be late. Check the weather, dress appropriately, including your shoes. Try to get all the basics first that you could Google, right? So if you're on a tour and you're like, so, what, I don't know, like, do you have this major? Or, how many students go here? Like you can, like they might go over some of that, but you can Google that before you come. Find out what the tour covers, see if you can add anything on your own. See if you want to talk one-on-one with admissions. Freshmen, sophomores probably don't need to just yet. Things can change, so you may want to wait. That may be more of like senior year if you really want to sit down with someone individually, but the admissions presentation usually covers the majority of things that you need to know. Again, if you want to try to talk to a coach, sit in on the class, you can reach out and see if that's even an option. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And then while you're there, check out the area around it. What else is there to do? Is there places to eat? Again, you can see on like Iowa's website, for example, they have other suggestions and ways to help you plan your trip to the area. So a lot of times that info is on the college site as well. So this is a really quick video from the show The Middle that I'm going to just take a 2-second break and play it and what to do or not to do.
All right, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to IU. Today we'll be starting our tour in front of our chemistry building.
Chemistry? I'm going to need a draw map. Which way is north?
180 majors. This may be of interest to you. We also offer a minor in Native American and Indigenous peoples.
Oh.
Okay, now I know a lot of you want to know about student housing.
Wait, I have a question. Is there any nearby housing for parents? Because I don't think Maddie here can survive without her Saturday morning super daddy pancakes.
Dad, stop. You're making me hungry.
Secret ingredient is love. I'm kidding. It's cinnamon.
Okay, let's move on.
So,
all right, everyone.
Not sure if not sure if you could hear that great, but kind of two parts there is who is the student paying attention? Are they talking? It's great to take notes and pictures, and we'll talk about that. From the parent side, you want to ask good questions, but you maybe don't want to be like that parent that's kind of taking over the whole thing, or I appreciate a good dad joke more than anyone, but if you're kind of going overboard, then it stops being about the tour or your student and starts being about, other things. And so just, kind of a funny way to kind of segue into some tips we have from the college side as we're coming up here quick on the time. I can stay after if you can as well, for sure. So what to expect, of course, a walking tour that's going to usually be led almost all the time by a student, a current undergrad student. And so this is a great resource that they're trained, they know great facts, but just ask them about their experience. I often ask, like, why did you pick this school? Where else were you looking? What do you like the most about it here? If you could change anything, what would you change? what are you involved in? How do you balance, all this job and class and all these other things? And so that's a great resource to get a vibe. Honestly, sometimes the student tour guide can be the make or break it. They can sell the school amazing, or they could be like, oh, if this is how every student is, like this may not be the right fit. So it's a great kind of way to gauge like the vibe of the students. Of course, again, they're trained and this is their job, so they're going to be a little more pro school than the normal student, but still, if they're not, then it could be a red flag. Again, most likely you're going to get a presentation by an actual admission staff member. So sometimes I'm on tours and people are asking the student what's like the SAT score that you need, or what's the admit rate for this major, and the student doesn't know. That's an admissions staff member question. And just a reminder, just like you kind of saw in the video, if it's a group tour, there's going to be people from all over the world, backgrounds, experiences, financial situations, personalities, so just kind of be aware of that. If people are asking questions that you think are kind of basic, try not to give too many eye rolls. If, just kind of make sure you're just be aware of anything, be ready for anything. I kind of talked about the special events as well. And so just kind of look out for those if it's a school that you're really interested in. Those could be a really great way, again, to hear from a lot of different places without having to set up like multiple different appointments. And then try to include these things if you can. And again, you're going to have to schedule them ahead of time, most likely, if you wanted to meet with an academic department or major. So Iowa nicely has it on their website. Other places you might have to reach out individually. Some of you mentioned, like, what if I have students that are special ed? You may really, while you're there, want to go talk to the Office of Students with Disabilities, or whatever the office might be called, because that's where you're going to go. There's not going to be an IEP or 504 plan, but you're going to take that and those needs, work with that office, the student is, and then that office is going to help relay those accommodations to their instructors. And so you may want, while you're there, want to really talk to that office and see what services they provide and what kind of vibe you get from them. Sometimes there's overnight visits, especially if students are admitted first. Then that could be a great way to check out how the campus truly is. Sit down in a class we talked about. Eat in the food court is another great option. If they don't give you that option like Iowa does, then just you might have to pay your own and go on in. And then attend an athletic event or other social event just to kind of see what, again, the vibe is. Because the website's going to show, super fans, packed. And then if you go and you're like, there's 3 people here, like it could be, not what you expect. All right, some do's and don'ts. So these are for students, and parents as well. So again, be your best self. Try not to, make, especially if they're tracking demonstrated interest, especially for your student. Again, they're not tracking demonstrated interest in parents. They're tracking demonstrated interest in the student. So hopefully the student's being their best self on time, come prepared with questions. So the admission rep's not going to ask you, the parent, so what are you interested in? What do you like? What do you want to study? They're going to ask your student. So hopefully they have something, ready to answer. Someone's, you're going to take notes either on a notepad or on a device where you can clearly tell that you're taking notes and not just, texting. I'll show you some worksheets here that we have in a second that you can use and print. And then, especially make sure that the phones and earbuds and hoodies are off. I've seen all that kind of stuff on tours when I've gone with other students. Take pictures for sure so that you remember. But again, make it clear you're taking pictures outward of the school and not just taking a bunch of selfies of yourself on campus. That goes for students and parents, I guess. So don't be afraid to ask questions, though, again, make sure you Google the basics before. Don't display embarrassing behavior. So we saw, super pancake daddy could be embarrassing. The girl actually, responded, nicely, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to yell at your kid too much, or, don't want the kids to like yell back at you. It's not a good look for you. And then I've seen this too. Don't fall asleep during that admission presentation, especially the student who's, the one who's going to be making the choice. So grab your caffeine or whatever you need before you go to those things. All right. Once you're done with the presentation, with the tour, make sure if you're not writing them or reflecting while you're going, that you stop and write down notes and thoughts immediately. They can be overwhelming, especially if you're visiting more than one school at a time. So you really want to put any notes, thoughts, reflections, and so on. So in the post-secondary planning guide, I have 2 worksheets. One is like a pro-cons list that you can use to like ask there's some questions here, and then you can say what you like or no like. And then again, for the student, what is most important to them? And how does that differ from what's most important to you? You might be thinking that the cost and the nutritious food and the security is number one, and they may be thinking that student life and sororities or fraternities are the most important. So maybe you both want to fill out one of these forms and kind of see where you're at. And then another sheet that we have as well here has a bunch of questions. There's the QR code as well to the last document we looked at with all the 140 schools that are nearby. And again, these are some questions that you can ask and pinpoint in advance what's important to you. So some people are really, again, focused on the dorms and how roommates work. Other people want to know more about financial aid. So some of these questions, could be great for parents. Parents may want to know about, public transportation and does my kid need a car? But, the students should probably be asking about, some of these other things as well. And then here's just another comparison worksheet that you can, this is more facts to put versus, especially if you're going to more than one school, facts versus thoughts, but you can, do that as well. So these aren't perfect sheets, but they're a place to start, especially if you're looking for some questions. Oops. So again, reach out if you have any questions to admissions afterwards. We have assigned counselors to our school. So again, some of them are regional and live here, even if the school is far away. Like I said, our Purdue rep lives down the street, for an example. Others are, they live at that school, many states away, and they're assigned to us, but they don't really come here, or we don't really know them. So, but if we had Missouri S&T Science and Tech here yesterday, and the rep lives around here and said, I read everyone's applications and I make the decisions basically on if they're admitted or not. So that one person sometimes can have a lot, if not all, the influence. And so it's good to get to know them. So even if they're here and you go to the campus, follow up with them and say, hey, I just visited the campus and, it was great. And, just whatever. Thank people, send, thank you notes if that's great, especially if they accommodated you. I've heard stories where people went for an informal drive-through or an informal walkthrough, and they just stopped into the admissions office and said, we don't have an appointment or anything. Just, you have a map or, a brochure. We'll just, kind of be on our way. And they're like, no, sit down. We'll talk to you. We'll take you around. That's really nice of them. So if somebody does something like that, definitely follow up with them. If there's any post-visit surveys, especially if it's a school that tracks demonstrated interest, fill those out, let them know if there was a tour guide who was phenomenal. And if not, let them know that too. And then if you're taking your child out of school on a school day, you would call them out on the day or days that they're going to miss, just like you would if they were sick. And then you would bring any proof of going there, the agenda, the confirmation email. The student would bring that into the attendance office when they return, and they will change that absence from sick or whatever to an excuse like a field trip. And then that would, for something like Harper Promise, wouldn't count against them. All right, as we're wrapping up here pretty shortly, we've kind of talked about demonstrated interest. Again, put your best self out there, because that counselor that is doing the presentation, that is setting things up, could be the one that's making that final decision, or they have a big influence in it. Even the students might not. Sometimes they might come back and say, that family was just something else, and they may make a note of that, and you don't want that for sure. And then continue on with them with local programs, receptions, visits. Our college fair, again, is on April 9th this year. We're getting close to 200 colleges. And if there's summer programs as well, they can be costly, but they can be a way to, visit the school even more. This is a picture of a couple years ago, but this is in our theater where our U of I rep came. And so a lot of people obviously want to go to that and hear that. So we have our panels going on right now, mostly for juniors. Sophomores welcome. Freshmen are welcome too, though sophomores and juniors are the best right now for those. Really quick, I just found this online. I covered a lot of this stuff. I would highlight a couple of these. Number two, the environment of the campus. So the mood of the campus itself, the students, are they sitting together in the cafeteria, happy, or is everyone on their own table, like staring at their phone? What's the surrounding community like? Not just, geographically, but what's the culture of that area? So I went to visit Northern Michigan this summer, up in the Upper Peninsula, and they made it a big point that the community is embedded with the school, and it's such a friendly place, and pace of life is much slower than in the big city, and so that's something to kind of check out. Is that something you're looking for, or is that something that's going to be too slow for you? Yeah, that's most of the, and then again, number 10, write down your impressions, like of each school you visit, not just the basics, but like what vibe did you get? What feel did you get? You could do it. Your student for sure should do it. And then you can kind of compare where you're at. And then really what it comes down to, and a lot of students make their decision based on that gut feeling. They went there and they were like, yes, this is where I want to be, or I was not feeling that at all. Like I hear a lot of, I really wanted to like it, but it wasn't what I thought. It wasn't what I expected. And that's okay. That's why we go do these things. All right, really quickly, some other questions. Again, I kind of talked about that came through. I want to make sure I get everyone's questions. If you have other questions, there's only like two other slides. So this is pretty much all the other questions. If you have more, put them in the chat and I'll get to them as soon as I finish this. But I talked about if you have special ed, a student with special needs, talk to their office. Athletes, set up a meeting for sure. If you're going to be on campus, we have our student athlete recruitment guide on our website as well. You can find it on the College and Career Center website, and in it we have questions that you can ask, like the coach, ask the players, ask yourself. So if you scroll down, there's a lot of questions that you can ask while you're there if you're looking for specific athlete coach questions, or if you're able to talk to players. So definitely take a look at that resource as well. Oops. A few people asked if they recommend meeting individually with an admissions counselor. Again, if you're a freshman or sophomore, probably not at this point. You're going to get the admissions presentation. You can kind of informally chat with that person, but I don't know if you would need to go about making an individual specific appointment when you're at the campus. Again, a lot of these reps come to our school and students can come talk to them there. Specifics can change from freshman year, by the time they apply. So if you're asking about real specific, application stuff or essay questions, it may be different. How many campuses should you visit? I just kind of put as many as it takes to figure out the size, location, type, whatever. It can be costly and time consuming, but hopefully if you visit several different types of schools, then you'll have your student will have a general idea of what route they want to go. And then another last question that I got was, what should we expect overall? And I would say anything, right? So when I went to Arizona, it was December, but I was thinking it's Tucson, it's the desert. You can see there on the left, it was 39 degrees and raining. So that wasn't what I thought when I booked an Arizona trip in December. I went to Denver in Colorado in May. And they kept touting everywhere that they get 300 days of sunshine. And clearly, I was there one of the 65 days that they didn't. I've been to visits where they've said, like, we're really excited. We're building this brand new science building. And then we're on the tour. They're literally building the science building. And all you hear is like with a jackhammer the whole time. And you can't hear any. So like there's a lot of things that you can, you could expect anything, I guess, basically. And so you may not get the best. It's a risk, right? You never know. Like you could get the perfect visit. You could get one that was disappointing. If you think the school really is a good match and you're not sure if that was a true indication of a good fit, you might need to visit again if you can. But you can kind of look. I would look on their website first to see like what hopefully you can expect in terms of logistics of the day, but then know that weather or something can happen and you never quite know. These are just some areas that you can visit virtually if you want. Most of them have them embedded in their own school's website, so nothing super fancy. The College Tour on Amazon is a pretty cool series. If you have that, you can watch those. You can even watch them on YouTube like for free. So with that said, and it is 10 minutes over, so I thank so many of you for sticking around all this time to still hear me go. If anyone has any questions that I might want to answer for everyone in general, throw them in the chat now. Otherwise, if you have individual or personal questions about your students specifically, definitely email me and we can set up a time to meet about whatever questions you have, and ideally with them so that they're part of the process too.